Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela, and I have a great show lined up for you today. My guest on today's show is Lala Duncan. Lala is an amateur strongwoman. She is the head of training and development over at the Dogpound, an amazing training facility in New York City and also Los Angeles. She's a strength coach, and she was a CrossFit coach for quite a while as well. And she really has quite the interesting story on how she transitioned her careers from being in the fashion industry into the fitness industry. And we had a really great conversation. I think you guys are going to love it. But before we get into today's show, I just want to fill you in on the Lean SOB project. So if you are a man who is sick and tired of struggling with their fitness and nutrition and yo-yo dieting and losing just to gain it back, to lose it again, to gain it back, well, then I want you to pay close attention because we are going to put an end to that shit right now. So currently, I have 9 more spots available for the next class of the Lean SOB project. And if it's your first time listening to this show and you don't know what the Lean SOB project is, let me fill you in. So the Lean SOB project is 6 weeks of online fat loss nutrition coaching with me. This is where you can work with me personally, and I will literally handhold you every single step of the way to teach you the fundamental principles of nutrition. So we could develop the foundation of your nutritional and fitness success. Because without these foundational principles, that is what leads to these fad diets and the next gimmick and unsustainable results. My goal is to not only teach you how to melt fat off of your frame, but how to keep it off for good. And not only melt fat off of your frame and build lean muscle mass, but to get you healthy, to get you performing at an optimal level, to make sure that you are becoming the best version of you, optimizing your health, getting stronger, losing body fat, and making sure that you're doing things correctly. So if you would like to work with me for 6 weeks starting January 24th, if you want to be one of the remaining 9 spots, I only take 10 for this program. 1 spot is already gone. So if you want to be one of the remaining 9 guys to join this program, then I want you to head over to leansobproject.com right now, fill out an application. Now here's the deal. Not everybody is going to qualify for this program. You might not. It just depends on what it is you're looking to do and how serious you are. So you have to fill out the application first. Do that immediately because if the spots fill out, you're going to miss out on this, okay? And you're going to miss out on this life-changing opportunity. So if you are really serious about making a change in 2021 and not just be another new year, new me bullshit friggin' New Year's resolution, then head over to leansobproject.com, fill out your application. If you meet the requirements and you qualify, you and I will set up a phone call to discuss the program, to discuss your goals, and see if this is a good fit for you. So again, that's leansobproject.com. Now, here is my conversation with Lala Duncan. All right. Well, Lala, welcome to the Iron Life Podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're
You're quite as busy as well.
Yes, that's for sure. It's a busy time for all of us. We got Christmas Eve tomorrow and Christmas, so the holidays are here. It's always a crazy time of year.
Yeah, I love it though.
Oh, totally. Are you in the holiday spirit? What's going on? Is COVID wrecking your holiday plans?
You know what? Not really. For the last 5 years, like all of my holidays have kind of been non-traditional because I was living abroad. So it's just another, every year is different, and I embrace the challenge. And despite it being a COVID year, I think it's been actually a pretty interesting and fantastic year. So business-wise, so I embrace it. Different is good.
Yeah, for sure. And it certainly has been different. But so speaking of you being all over the place as far as living in different countries and all that, I want to get into that. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about you, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, so currently I'm the head of training and development at Dogpound. Dogpound's personal training studio based out of New York. Our second location is in Los Angeles, and I started working there in April of 2019. Prior to that, I was coaching CrossFit in Copenhagen, and prior to that, I was coaching group classes at a powerlifting and strongman gym in Hong Kong. And prior to that, I was a fashion designer for 15 years.
Wow. We have a
So
lot to
yeah,
cover. We have a lot to cover. You can't
eh,
just leave it at that.
yeah, exactly. So I was a fashion designer for 15 years in LA, and the two kind of actually, I wouldn't be here without the fashion background because it kind of led me to where I am today. So can't
Great.
have one without the other. Yeah.
So let's talk about that first. So what got you into fashion, and then how did that transition into fitness?
Well, I think fashion was just something that was going to happen inherently. I've always been creative. I was always into fashion and style growing up. So that was kind of something that was naturally going to happen. That started when I was in my early to mid 20s when I was living in Los Angeles. I started a fashion line on my own with a friend of mine. From there, I went to design school. I started working for other people. I started getting into designing sportswear. I started becoming active myself, working out like in my early 30s. And then an opportunity came up where I was able to move to Hong Kong in 2015. And so, a little bit about the fashion industry is one of the things I started to have a problem with in the fashion industry is that we were making clothes to hide women's insecurities. So, clothing is supposed to be fun and make you feel good about yourself, right? That was something that always drew me to fashion, was how it made me feel. But then that feeling wears off after a while, right? And you want something new again. But what we were doing is we were making clothes to kind of hide the things about women's bodies that they didn't like about themselves, whether it be you have to make the sleeve longer because, the customer doesn't like their arms, or maybe they're a mother of children and they don't like the way their stomach looks. So let's hide that. Or, hips, let's hide the hips, make everything with elastic. So I, instead of it, kind of like the creative aspect of making clothing was no longer there, and it was all about just selling clothing, you know to women, just not really like making them feel good per se. So, and
Okay.
I was always that one person in the office who was always working out, always into fitness. And I started thinking to myself, like, what was happening to me was as I started becoming more physically active, my body started to change and started to change in ways that I started to feel better about myself. So it no longer became about what I was wearing and more about how I felt about myself. So I started thinking, maybe this isn't the route that I want to go in. I love working out. I love training. It's changed my life. And I see the way that other women react to me, and they see me and they're like, hey, how do I get arms like yours? Or, what are you doing? And then I realize maybe this is the direction that I should be going in. And not so much about making clothes to hide these insecurities, but maybe we can shape and design our own bodies so that we feel better about ourselves. And it's no longer about what we're wearing and more about how we're feeling about ourselves. So it
Mm,
it
that's
was
really
all
cool.
just happened.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you didn't get into actually training until your 30s then.
Uh 37. Yeah, so training myself.
Yeah, for yourself.
Um yeah, so my fitness journey started in my early 30s. From where I became serious about strength training. Yeah, I was in my mid to late 30s, like 37. Yep.
Okay. So what was that first step? Like what brought you into that world and to start training yourself?
Well, how it happened. So before that, I was always into Pilates, yoga, spinning. Um, I walked into a gym in Hong Kong, the strongman gym that I worked at, Ursus. And I saw this like beautiful blonde young girl, and she was flipping a tire, and she picked up this huge stone. And I just remember I thought to myself, what is this? Is this training? Like, this looks like stuff we used to do like when I was growing up in northern Florida, right?
Yeah,
Flipping
yeah,
tires, picking stuff up, right?
right. And
And
you're working in fashion at this point. That's why you're in Hong Kong.
yeah, so I'm
Got it.
working for a sweater manufacturer in Hong Kong.
Got it.
But I'm also checking out different gyms around the city because if you're not very familiar with Hong Kong, it has a huge fitness community. And there are a lot of amazing gyms there. And so I would use going to gyms as a way to check out a different area of the city. And I walked into this one gym. It was in the Sang Poon neighborhood of Hong Kong. And so I saw this girl flipping this tire and picking up these stones. And I was amazed. Like, she was beautiful, she was strong. I thought it was mesmerizing. I was like, "What kind of gym is this? What kind of training is this?" And she told me she was a competitive strong woman and it was her gym. And I said, "How do I sign up?"
Hmm.
So,
And
yeah,
you were
and
hooked ever
from the
since.
and what?
I said, and you were hooked ever since. That was the first step for you.
I was hooked ever since. So, I had never even touched a barbell up until that point.
Hmm.
So I started training at this gym. They kind of had like a functional group class where they implemented all these strongman movements into it. It was it was very easy for someone who didn't have that much of a fitness background to kind of come in and learn these movements. And then they also did powerlifting and Olympic lifting there. So that's where I got introduced to it. I had never squatted before. I had never bench press or overhead press or deadlift. I had never done any of that, never touched a barbell until I was 37.
Wow.
So, yep.
A- And then, so how long from that day when you walked into that gym until you started training people? And then what was the transition like out of fashion? Because I'm sure there was a lot of steps here that occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say probably from the time that I started training myself to when I started training other people was maybe about only a year. I mean, I was on the fast track, right? So I think I stayed at that fashion job maybe for 3 months before I just realized I couldn't take it anymore. And I decided to quit that job. I thought maybe I would look for a different job, but what ended up happening is I was so in love with going to this gym that I think they could pick up on the passion that I had for it. And they asked me if I wanted a job.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much like how all of my jobs, whether it be fashion or any industry, it's happened. I think people pick up on my excitement and my passion for something, and they're drawn to that. And opportunity always arises from that for me. So it's almost every opportunity I've ever gotten has never really been one that I've sought out. It's kind of just happened organically. So they asked me if I wanted a job. I thought they needed a receptionist, to be quite honest. I knew their receptionist had quit, and I thought, "Do you need me to answer the phone?" And I would have done it, right? That's how much
Yeah.
I loved this place. I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll answer the phone for you." And they were like, "No, we want to know if you would be interested in like joining our staff. Like, clearly you're passionate. Um, you're here every day, you're learning from us. You can work here, apprentice while you get your certification." And that's all it took. I said, "I'll start on Monday."
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you were doing fashion basically your whole life up until this point. So I'm sure there was a lot of emotions and stuff like that going on, right? When you're leaving one industry and entering a new one, or are you someone that's just like, all right, I'm all in? Like, how was that transition for you?
I I think I'm the type of person like once I've made a decision, I'm pretty good about just moving on. I think I had been in fashion for about 15 years. Uh, by the time I got to Hong Kong, I was pretty much already checked out because I went from working for very small, mid-sized brands in the US where I had a lot of creative freedom. And when I went to Hong Kong, it's a it's the same industry, but it's a completely different mindset, right?
Mm.
I was working a lot longer days. I had less creative freedom. I was pretty much just sitting in a cubicle with no windows, cranking out 70 to 80 designs on a computer. Whereas um, before in LA, I had a little bit more freedom. I used to go and meet with vendors. I used to travel to India and China and meet with the factories. And that was the thing I missed. That's the thing that I even still miss to this day about the industry. Getting to do all the development work, visiting the factory, seeing how something that you created up here and you put onto paper, seeing it come to life is something that there's no other feeling. The only thing that I can compare it to is when I see someone, you know, pull a deadlift that they were convinced they couldn't do, or seeing that excitement of someone like, picking up a weight for the first time. It's the same feeling. So even though I miss that industry, I think there's much more meaning and purpose in what I'm doing now
Mm.
than I did before. So I miss the creative part, but I also think that training is very creative, especially in a time like now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just took one industry and traded it for another pretty much. Just I look at it as like I'm still designing. I'm helping people design their bodies.
Yeah.
So, to me it's kind of similar in
I
that
love
regard.
that. I love that.
Yeah.
I could relate to the transition though. So I started my career, I was 18 years old, and then I became a firefighter when I was 25 because I thought that would be the perfect combination of training people. And
Right.
I just realized that after a while that it wasn't for me, and I didn't want to stay in that career anymore. So after about 4 years, I left to run my gym full time, and it was a tough decision. Like, even though I knew it's what I wanted, it's still you're walking away from something that was guaranteed, as far as nothing's
Right.
guaranteed, right? But you still it's that safe job, it's that quote unquote secure job that you're walking away from for something
Yeah.
that, hey, even now, I think I left in 2016, so almost 5 years later, it's still unpredictable. You still never know, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because this is what I love to do, and I'm sure you could relate to that.
Exactly. I think it was harder for other people to accept the fact that I was leaving the fashion industry to
Yes,
become
yeah,
to become a trainer,
yep.
especially like my mother, because she was like, "Well, I'm not going to get free clothes anymore."
Mhm.
And I think even for myself, and that was one of the things I loved, was getting the free clothes or having a closet full of things that you designed. But once I stopped putting value into what was going on me and started putting value into myself, I didn't care about that anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, I live in sweats every day now. I'm happy as hell. You
Right.
know, I would have never been caught dead looking like this, like 6 years ago. So I think it's just, yeah, I completely can relate. Like there was some emotion leaving it, but there's definitely a lot more value in what I do today.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm laughing because I actually didn't even tell my father, old school Italian dude, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, there's no way at the time that he's gonna understand this. There's no chance. So I'm like, I'm not even gonna tell him because I don't need the negativity. There's a few people in my
Exactly.
life who know. I'm just gonna do my thing, and then whenever he finds out, he finds out. So it's like, now this went on probably a little too long. I should have told him at some point, but it was like a year later when he just kind of heard through the grapevine, right? So then he gives me a call and he's like, "Hey, jerk off, did you quit the fire department?" And
Are
I'm
you
like,
nuts?
yeah, 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 totally. Like, if I started talking to him about passion and vision, he has no idea. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that was going to sit with him. So anyway, you made me laugh with that. But so now you're working at this gym. So what does the evolution look like? How does this progress
In Hong Kong, yeah.
in Hong Kong? Right.
So I worked there for about, gosh, maybe like a year and a half. Um, from there, an opportunity in Copenhagen came up. So I had to leave Hong Kong. go to Copenhagen. From there, I wasn't sure what I was going to do because I wasn't really sure what the industry in Copenhagen was like. I knew that CrossFit was really big there. I joined a CrossFit gym, and at the time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I was training at the CrossFit gym for about 3 months. Same thing happened. Head coach walks up to me and he's like, you know, we need a part-time coach. Are you interested? And so I told him, I was like, look, I have a CF level 1, but I am not a CrossFit coach. He's like, all the moves. I have a gymnastics background, Olympic weightlifting. And by this point I had trained in Russia. So for weightlifting, kettlebell sport, and powerlifting. So I had like everything in my toolbox, right? But I didn't consider myself a CrossFitter, much less a CrossFit coach. But again, I told him, I was like, if you're cool, I'm cool. I'd love to give it a try. And from there, I took one class. One class turned into working 5-6 days a week. Next thing you know, I'm doing my own strongman / strength training class. I'm training I'm personally training clients. I'm working full time at this CrossFit box. Like none of the other coaches were like working full time. They're either all students or competitive athletes. So it left opportunity for me to become a full-time coach. And also simultaneously, I'm traveling, attending seminars. I'm trying to educate myself as much as I can in a short amount of time. And I did that for about a year, and then boom, got to come back to the US.
Now you kind of just breezed over the fact that you trained at the Olympic Weightlifting Center in Russia, right? So like, how did
Yeah.
that happen?
How did that happen? Yeah. So I met Dmitry Klokov in Hong Kong. He came and did a seminar at our gym. And I don't know if you're familiar, but he started this sport called crosslifting. So it's kind of like a hybrid of strongman in kind of like a CrossFit-ish, setting kind
Okay.
of. So it was something that I thought was very interesting. So he was doing a 3-week training camp in Moscow. And so the owner, Santina, the competitive strong woman from Ursus, she wanted to go. I had moved to Denmark and I said, look, Russia's super close and I am dying to get out of here because, 2-3 months in, Denmark is a really hard place to meet people. So I was like, yeah, I will come and meet you in Russia. So we did 3 weeks at the Olympic Training Center in Moscow. And I think we were 2 of 4 women at this training camp. We were the only 2 non-Russian speakers. So we had a translator. It was a pretty amazing experience. You're literally training the way that they trained when they were growing up. So it was like Dmitry and his childhood friends. So one of them is like Misha Klakaya, and the kettlebell guy is Ivan Denisov. So they all kind of like grew up together in this training center. So for them, it was kind of like returning home. We ate the way that they ate. We stayed in the dorms at the Olympic Training Center. We would wake up, have breakfast, go and train. They weighed us every morning and night. We would train 3 times a day. We would do recovery. We would have lectures in the evening. I mean, it was a pretty amazing experience.
And how
Like
long were you there?
about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest takeaways? Like, what are some of the key things from a training standpoint? I'm
From
sure
a
there's so
training,
many, but
well, there's so many. I think for me, the most exciting part was someone who was kind of still pretty new to this whole industry. For me, getting to train with some of the best athletes in the world was pretty fantastic. And
mind blowing,
also
right?
getting to live like an athlete. I grew up playing sports. I had dreams of like, becoming a competitive, track athlete. And I also did gymnastics growing up. But this was truly like, you felt like you were there and training for something really important. Um, I've never had that experience before. So for me, it was being around that many like-minded individuals was pretty empowering. As far as probably one of my favorite things that we learned, getting to learn kettlebells in Russia is pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was awesome.
Did they have specific like sleep protocols? What was your diet like? What kind of food were they feeding you? What is
I
all that?
mean, okay, so the diet,
Yeah.
um, I loved it. It was literally meat, um, rice, potatoes. I mean, very Russian. I'm trying to think of like what they call, there's like this cottage cheese. Um, I cannot remember what it's called, but it was like this. Oh God, it's the most amazing cottage cheese you've ever had. But all the guys would put like preserves on it and like honey, or and they would get it, like they would take it to go, they would take it back to their room and eat it. They said they would eat it like at night before they went to bed, and it was really tasty, but I can't remember what it's called. I think I have a picture of it with the name like on one of my Instagram stories. But I mean, we ate like typical Russian food, you
Okay.
know.
Was there a
Yeah.
specific amount of calories that you guys were trying to eat, or is they just feeding you?
Nah, they were just feeding us. I mean, it wasn't that strict. I mean, I remember I went into I was the smallest person there. I went into the camp, I think weighing about 56 kilos. I left weighing 54.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I actually lost weight during the camp. And so
Okay.
I took a picture of it on the last day because obviously the idea was that you were supposed to gain weight during
Sure.
this camp, right? And not with me because the training, I just couldn't eat enough to support the training. But
Sure.
you know,
Yeah,
I,
3
I
sessions
wasn't
a day,
used
you
to
said,
train.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot. That's a lot.
yeah. But I
Okay.
mean, it was God, that was it was so much fun.
That must have been amazing. And
Yep.
now, so then you leave there, and now you start coaching CrossFit, and that's back in the US now, right?
So when I came to the US, I thought I was going to coach CrossFit. I didn't end up actually doing it. I was training. I started getting back into strongman training. I figured I would start competing in strong woman competitions. I was going to like a couple of CrossFit gyms in the city in New York. But an opportunity came up. So actually a coach that I knew in Denmark had told me, he said, "Hey, if you're moving to New York, there's this gym that you should check out. It's called Dogpound." So I looked on their Instagram and I was like, it's a personal training studio. Like, I don't need a personal trainer. I mean, maybe I do, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't need a personal trainer, right? My mind wasn't even thinking like, hey, I'll go, maybe I should go and apply there. I was just thinking like, well, I can't go and train there. It's just personal training. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I got a message from someone and they were like, hey, my buddy trains there and knows the manager. They're opening an LA location and they're looking for trainers to fill those spots in New York. So I sent over my Instagram. I didn't even have a resume. I'm like trying to type up a resume, like, I was new to this industry, right? Like my last resume was a fashion resume. Like
Right.
that's what I was doing when I left the US. So I'm coming back to the US, a new city, a new career. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just sent them a resume, sent them my Instagram, and they called me in for an interview. And then that was it. Started working April 1st of 2019 at Dog Pound. And it's been an amazing experience. I've gotten to do exactly what I love. And I didn't think, I wasn't sure that that was going to be possible coming back to the US. I had a lot of reservations,
Mm.
you know, just because it was a new industry to me. I didn't know how competitive it was going to be. I didn't, I thought to be a trainer in New York City, you had to have like a huge following. I didn't have any of that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about Dog Pound.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with it that much?
Only by just kind of scrolling through your Instagram.
All right. All right. So, what's amazing about Dogpound is I think the number one thing that everyone says, they're like, oh, it's a place that trains the models. Um, they're pretty well known for training high profile clientele, celebrities, and Victoria's Secret models. um, yeah, so it's only personal training, but I think one of the things that was kind of where I had reservations going into a place like Dog Pound was you see really young, chiseled, hot trainers with, 6 foot tall, gorgeous models. And that was kind of foreign to me. I'm used to training in like, you know, sweaty, smelly gyms in Hong Kong and Copenhagen, right?
Right.
Um, so I wasn't really sure if this was going to be a good fit for me. And then I said, you know what the heck? Again, something new, something different, right? They hired me. I was like, I'm going to take the chance. And I was really fortunate to find a niche clientele that loved strength training. One of the things that I told myself going into something like Dog Pound was that I wasn't going to stray away from who I was, which was my focus is strength training and primarily for women, especially women over a certain age. Um, and so I was able to find that clientele there just organically. I think people that were looking for strength training gravitated towards me. And then next thing you know, my schedule is jam packed with people that want to lift. Like, and I didn't think that was going to be possible. I honestly thought I was going to be doing banded booty kickbacks for
Right.
8 hours a day.
Right.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what I thought. I was like, this is what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
And turns out just stay true to yourself and they'll come to you.
That's really cool. And so how did your clientele, like, was it just because you were there and they, you had one person seeing what you were doing? Like, how did you build your clientele there?
Yeah. So what's fantastic about Dog Pound is it's different than any other. I think it's different than like an Equinox or other personal training gyms where the clientele base is already built in. I mean, emails are coming in every day of people wanting to train at Dog Pound, right? So there's no shortage of clients.
Mm.
And each trainer is different. And that's what makes the place really unique. And then their personal training concept is built around when you come in as a new client, you're assigned a team of trainers based off of a questionnaire that you're given on your previous fitness, background, goals, what you're looking for, style of training, how many days a week, all this stuff, right? So we assign you anywhere from like 3 to 4 trainers. And this really this model of personal training works really well for the clients, meaning if the client's like, hey, today I feel like doing more kind of like body weight and calisthenics or something like that. Great. This is the trainer that you should work with. You know what? I feel like doing strength training, or I just want to get like, pump some iron. Great. We're going to put you with this trainer. Those are the pros. The cons are it can be a little bit kind of all over the place at times. So I think where I was able to kind of thrive in that environment was I was just kind of like coming from like a CrossFit background. I could kind of do a little bit of all of it, right? And so people kind of just gravitated towards that. They're like, all right, we can do strength training with you. We can do like some gymnastic stuff. We can do, mobility. It's and people just they see your training style, they see you training other people, or they see how you're training yourself when you're in the gym, and people just kind of gravitate towards that. So if people were training with another trainer and they see me or they see another trainer that they like, it's my job or the trainer's job to go up to them and say, hey, I want to introduce you to a new client. This is so and so. I think they would love training with you. I think you'd love training them. And we all kind of look out for each other and help each other out. And that's what makes this business model so successful, and that it truly is a team. And so we're not competing against each other. We're trying to help each other out. So
Awesome.
It's pretty unique. Yeah.
It's really cool. And now, so what is your training philosophy? What does that look like these days?
My training philosophy, obviously it's strength.
Hmm.
Um, that's always going to be my primary focus for myself, for my clients. There are a lot of things that fall underneath that, obviously. Um, but I mean, I use strength training as a way to try and empower not just women, but all my clients. I train men as well. I find that it's not just the physical elements of the strength training. I find that there's so many other factors that go into it.
Totally.
The mental benefits, the emotional benefits. Um, I've seen dramatic changes in a lot of my clients, not just physically, but how they carry themselves, the way that they approach things, um, the way that they behave, the way that they treat themselves now, the way they treat others. Um, I just think strength is strength. It's internal, it's external,
Now,
it's
they, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it. I find it I find it beautiful. Like it's romantic to me in a way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and the thing is, even with the rise of strength training and even CrossFit and whatnot, these days, there still is a weird stigma for some women when it comes to strength training. They think they're going to get huge and big and bulky, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So what are some of the benefits for the women listening right now? What are some of the benefits to quality strength training?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're talking about longevity.
Mhm.
That's usually direction I try to steer my clients in. Is looking at it from like a long-term standpoint, right? Obviously, I everyone's worried about aesthetics. I was. I also too thought that same way. What you just said about getting big or getting bulky. Um, Once I can get people out of that, and once they start to realize, like, look, it's not, put the looks aside, put the aesthetics aside. Let's think about, like, how is this going to make your life better long term? And that's how I try to approach it with them. It's the aesthetics are always going to be there. Everyone wants to look good, right? All of us do. But I'm also looking at it, I want to be able to do the things I love for the rest of my life. And in order to do that, I need to be strong.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, so the rest of it, I want to look good. I'm going to have to dial in my diet,
Right.
things like that. I think that's the big thing is like getting people out of that mindset that like if they pick up this like 35-pound dumbbell that all of a sudden tomorrow they're going to be huge, like, but yet, going and eating like, Shake Shack or something like that's acceptable, but
Right. Right.
but I would just, you got to pick and choose your battles.
Sure. And I think even from the aesthetic standpoint, though, I think it's so important for women to understand that, because what do most women say, right? At least, the women that I've worked with in the past, we have an initial consultation. And what's the one word they always use? Toned, right? I want to get toned, right? So having them
Yeah.
understand what that actually means, like, okay, so if that's the case, if you want to get toned, we're going to have to build lean muscle mass. We're going to have to burn body fat, right? So
Yep.
quality strength work, not only from the longevity standpoint, which is most important, like you said, right? But we're talking about joint stability, we're talking about mobility, and then even from the physique transformation standpoint, we're talking about um, building more lean muscle mass so we can burn more body fat, right? Because obviously muscle is highly metabolic. So in order to increase your metabolic rate, we want to pack on more lean muscle mass. And I think that it's so important for women to know that and to hear that message, because what is the go-to for most women, right? That might be listening to the show right now is, hey, I want to get toned, so I have to do cardio, or I have to do this 45
Yes.
minute butt buster workout and do 25,000 squat jumps and that type of thing.
I mean, I try to tell my clients like you're going to get more bang for your buck if you strength train, right? just like you said, like you could do 45 minutes of like, butt blasting or
Right.
whatever. Or you could go and like, do 10 minutes of, some like RDLs. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think that kind of conversation, like when I start talking that way with clients, automatically, unless they have some sort of like extensive knowledge of like fitness and strength training, what's going to happen is they're automatically going to tune out.
Mhm.
So I have to gradually just kind of introduce those things to them. Um, I'll kind of start them off by giving them what they think they want, and then we're just going to kind of move into a path of like strength training. It always happens naturally with all my clients, like getting through that mental barrier that, picking up these weights is going to make them big. I kind of just have to tackle that. I mean, for myself, I
Mhm.
tackle that, you know, gradually,
Right.
I think with them. And it always seems to work out, obviously, and my benefit, but for them as well. Because what ends up happening is they end up genuinely enjoying the process. So,
Right. And that's the most important thing, right? If they're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick to that. It goes for anyone, right? So
yeah,
super
exactly.
important. Now, what is
Yes.
what does your own personal training look like these days? How do you split it up?
Okay, I'm probably the worst at this. I call it intuitive training. So I pretty much just like, because I'm working 8 hours, 8 hours every day training other people virtually right now because of the pandemic. I kind of, I will go in every day. I will train whatever I feel like I need for that day. I
Hmm.
used to be a little bit more regimented with my training. Now, honestly, for me, it's just about, it's more mental than it is physical, I think, at this time.
Right.
Um, I think I personally miss having a little bit of a routine and being in the gym, but right now with training everyone virtually, like I said, if I can get into a gym or if I'm around some weights, I'm just going to kind of do what I feel like I need or I want to do.
Right.
Um, yeah. So my training right now, if I can get in, 4 days, 3, 4 days a week, I'm pretty good.
And do you have equipment at home? Like what's your deal? I know you're out in LA, so
Yeah.
clothes, right?
Gyms are closed. Yeah. So at home, I have pretty much everything I need. I have a squat rack, deadlift platform, just got my reverse hyper. I got
Oh, great.
kettlebells, dumbbells, yeah, I mean, sandbags. I have some strong woman equipment. I have a log, axle bar. Like I said, it's just kind of, I think some people from the outside looking in, my training might be a little bit all over the place, but I really enjoy the strongman training, and
Hmm.
I genuinely enjoy barbell training and using kettlebells, and I kind of just like it all. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not
So a
really
good
one
good
camp.
combination of everything.
Little bit of everything, yeah.
Got it.
Have
Got it.
to.
What about on the nutrition side? What's your diet like these days?
My diet,
You Christmas cookies like mine? My ass has been jiggling for the last 6 weeks.
I'm actually, you know what? I'm actually pretty good. Like I don't have a sweet tooth, which thank God.
Okay.
Um, I my I do meal prep. So when I'm in LA, I do meal prep mom, which is my friend's his mother. She's
Mhm.
the meal prep mom. And it's pretty simple. It's probably I don't count macros or anything. Honestly, I I I I'm gonna be that asshole who pretty much kind of eats whatever they want, but I would say I'm definitely need to probably consume a little bit more protein. Um, but yeah, my diet, I eat 3 times a day, pretty much the same thing. Meal prep,
Got it.
protein, carbs, and some vegetables. That's it.
That's it. Simple.
Yeah.
I love it.
Lots of coffee.
Yeah. You and me
Lots of
both.
coffee, lots of sparkling water. Yeah.
So now
Yep.
you mentioned that you're doing virtual training right now. So what does that look like?
What does that look like? Yeah, virtual training. This is something that I started doing back in April. We started. just with a couple of clients, just trying to keep them active. We didn't know how long this was going to last, right? So I started training just a couple of clients here and there. Maybe they had a band or one dumbbell at home. And then the longer that this started going on, I think people started to take it a little bit more seriously. I have clients that they went out to their second homes in the Hamptons. So they put in a full gym in their basement or a spare room. And when schools, so we're talking about New York. I was still in New York until August.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of my clients, like they either went upstate or they went out to the Hamptons. They built gyms for the most part in their house, and we started training. I train people anywhere from, I have a lot of clients that I train 3, some 5 times a week, all virtual. Yeah.
Got it.
So it started out literally just trying to keep people moving, right? Whatever you got a band. All right, cool. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some body weight stuff. Now it's a little bit more programmed and serious. It's now, I know what every client has. I program specifically for them and their needs based off of the equipment that they have and the time that they can give me. And this is now a full-time gig for me. Like I said, we'll do anywhere from 32 to 40 sessions a week, all virtual, all FaceTime and Zoom. I have clients anywhere. So I'm based in LA. Most of my clients are still in New York, but I have clients in Dubai. I have clients in Israel. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's actually opened up business for me. I'm actually busier now virtually than I was when I was physically working in the gym.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's such a demand right now. I think it's so important. Like, people want to know, like, if their gym is closed, what the hell do I do? And a lot of people don't have the time to try to figure that out. So I think it's so important to hire somebody like you right now.
I think it's important, but one of the other things that I think a lot of people are under the impression that once things open back up, that this whole industry, I mean by this whole virtual training thing is going to die, right? Like everyone's going to go flooding back to the gyms and everyone's just going to leave everything at home and forget about it. One, I hope that doesn't happen. But 2, I don't really think that that's going to happen because, like I said, I have clients that are I have like 3 women all in Minneapolis. Like, they're all in the same neighborhood and they all train out of this one woman's gym. Like, they're not going into a gym. They have a gym. They just need a trainer. You know what I mean? Like, they have the gym at their house. So I think that this is an industry that I want to keep going into. I hope it doesn't just die when things open back up. I think there are a lot of trainers that maybe they don't necessarily love doing the virtual training, and maybe that's why they're not as good at it. I'm not saying that I'm great at it. I just was able to kind of hit the ground running with it.
Sure.
And it's something I love doing. And I don't want to give up these clients that I've been working with for the last 9-10 months just to go back into the gym to physically train people. I kind of like the direction that I'm going in right now. And I also think that it's uncharted territory and there's definitely room for growth. And I kind of want to be on the forefront of that. So that's where I'm hoping.
Yeah, the shift of this industry really forced us to become really creative and really see, learn a lot about what can we do, right? And see some new opportunity here. And for people like you that are doing mostly virtual right now, and we like I told you earlier, at my training facility, we were doing this early on in the quarantine, and or in the pandemic rather, and it kind of opened our eyes too. Like, okay, so this could potentially be an additional service that we could offer, and so yeah, I don't think it's gonna. I think there's going to be some people for sure that are excited to get back into a gym once gyms open. But I also think that this is a model that I think will be around too, because especially people definitely they've filled up their garages and basements with a bunch whatever equipment they can get their hands on. I know guys that were just like desperate for rusty bars and all like the old weeder plates and shit. Like,
Dude, it
People,
was such a mad rush for like weights. It was
oh my
crazy.
God, it's such a demand. It's like $5 a pound for dumbbells or something crazy.
Yep.
It's pretty nuts. But I don't think that it's going anywhere. So, but are you currently taking on new clients, or what does that look like for you? You pretty booked up?
I am pretty booked up, but I am always looking to take on new clients. I think, gosh, I if you're interested in virtual training, hit me up. You know, like I said, I absolutely love it. It's to me, it's a new challenge. I find the excitement in, you know, for me it was the creativity of trying to program and work around kind of minimal equipment. I think that I actually got better at training people during this process than I did in the gym, because when you're in the gym it's fixed, right? You know what you have. You
Mhm.
come in, or the client comes in, you know exactly, like, oh, I'm going to go do this, we're going to go to the lat pull down machine, then we're going to go over here. When you're training someone at home and they have minimal equipment, I still have guys that only have one set of dumbbells and some bands, and I've been training them for 10 months. Like, trying to keep these guys, you know, keep them progressing in some
Sure.
way has been a challenge, but like a challenge that I absolutely love, because it would be so easy to just fall into, lazy path of programming, and it's boring. And I have to think of like ways, how do I keep them engaged? How do I keep them strong? We've been
Mhm.
working a lot on their mobility. Like, we're working a lot on the things that we didn't have time, or no one wants to do when you're in the gym and you can go and just like bench press heavy, you know?
Totally.
So we've been able to work on a lot of those things. And for me, that's been very gratifying as a trainer. I think I've learned a lot, so
Totally.
much.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Another
Yeah.
question I want to ask you is, I see you training with Dr. John Russin pretty often. How did you guys link up, and how often do you guys train together?
Yeah, so yes, I've name dropped him quite a few on podcasts, but yeah, so I started following him when I moved back to the US. And from there, just kind of, I bought a lot of his programs. I did one of his programs myself. I used it for some of my clientele as well. And then we had an opportunity at Dogpound in LA to host their PPSC
Mm.
course in October. And it was from there. After that, we met. I came to Madison. I got to train with him. Was pretty awesome. We got to train at Madtown. For me, that was really exciting. Talk about every toy you can imagine,
Mhm.
like at this gym.
Yeah,
So it was a pretty awesome experience. Yeah.
that's
So
awesome. And was that, do you guys travel around and train together right now, or are those videos from past events and whatnot?
yeah, those videos are from just like a few weeks ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Dr. John was on the show. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? But
Right.
him and I had a great conversation. So he's the man.
Yeah. So I like to take I like to take pride in the fact that, like I said, I've only been doing this a short amount of time. So I've been very fortunate enough in only a matter of 4 to 5 years to try and train or surround myself with some of the best people in this industry. So he's he's another one. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah, I'm just very fortunate.
Totally. Well, Lala, this was great. Where could people find you if they want to work with you? How could they reach out?
So you can reach out. Obviously, Instagram, you can find me. It's at Lift with Lala, but also go to Dogpound, Dogpound's Instagram. You can, if you want to train with me or any of us at Dogpound, you're going to go to info@thedogpound.com or lainfo@thedogpound.com. And yeah, that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to
No,
come on the show and chat with me. I had a blast. I hope you did too. And
thank you so much.
you're so welcome. And yeah, guys, head over, make sure you give Lala a follow, reach out to her if you have any questions. I'm sure she wouldn't mind to answer for you.
No,
And
I love questions.
there you go. So send
Yep.
them her way. All right, just hang on the line for a second. We're going to disconnect here. But guys, I want to thank you for tuning into our chat today. I hope you guys had a great time, and we will catch you next week on another episode of the Iron Life Podcast.